2022 for Wisdom Webinars, and this evening's title is The Honest Conversation. So I will talk for a little while about what that title means to me and why I chose it, and then please feel free to ask questions, jump in with anything you have to say. It's a welcoming, warm room. I like to think that we're all together sitting in a circle, maybe in the park, or maybe like one time when I was at Style Prison, we did the group outside and all sorts of little creatures, rabbits and ducks came along while we were in our circle, and one duck came into the middle of the circle and sat down and with their ducklings. So that was very cute. So we can imagine that. So just before we get started, I'll bring us all to this wonderful space by just grounding us all in the moment. So if you just like to take a breath, just find yourself in your seat or your bed or wherever it is that you are sitting this evening. And just feel yourself in your body, feel your head on your shoulders. Bring your whole self to this present moment. And know that while we're here in this safe space, you can let all of the rest of the day go. You can allow your thoughts to relax. You can allow yourself to just rest in this lovely space. And if you find yourself, your mind wandering, that's okay. Just bring yourself back to the moment. And while we're just here, I'll read a little note from Sydney Banks. This is from The Missing Link. Nothing on earth can be more paradoxical than truth. For truth represents both the form and the formless. Without one, the other is only half the puzzle. Without one, the other is of little value and is a cosmic lie. As we start to regain the true relationship between our personal intelligence, as we start to regain the true relationship that lies within, between our personal intelligence, as we start to regain the true intelligence that lies within, between our personal intelligence, as we start to regain the true, turn clears up our misguided lives. So with those words, just take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And when you're ready, open your eyes and bring yourself back to the room. So the honest conversation. What I've really noticed is that there is sometimes a misconception about that there's nothing to be done, as in we've just got to get peaceful and then there's nothing to be done. When in fact we see in the world things are being done, and it makes me wonder, well, what's all that about? And an example is dealing with work colleagues or employees or people who are in a leadership role, dealing with that complexity of relationships. And what I've realized more and more is that any conversation can be had from truth. Let me say that again in a different way. When a conversation is had from a neutral space or from a loving space, it can be a harsh conversation. It can be difficult. It can be letting somebody go who's working for you, or telling somebody that things aren't really working the way that you thought that they should be working. And they can be really hard conversations. But when we get really neutral, actually what we have to say can be said with a blanket of love, because it can be said from truth. So a really quick example is, if you've been in a relationship with somebody and you know that you want to break up, and you really know that you want to break up, and I don't know if I'm the only one that said, well, it's not the right time because it's their birthday next week, or then it's Valentine's, then it's Christmas, not in any order, this isn't. Then there's this, then we're going on holiday, and there never seems to be the right time, because what we're really doing is we're putting off this conversation that we don't want to have. We don't want to hurt someone, and we don't want to feel like the bad guy. We don't want to hurt ourselves. So that makes it all very muddy and difficult. But actually, when we get quiet and we get neutral about what we want to say, we can say it and the person can hear the truth of it, even though they could still feel hurt, even though we could still feel shitty. If it's come from love and it's come from truth, it has an anesthetic with it that makes the hurt a little less, last a little less longer, and one can hear the truth of it. And I'll give you a story of my own that some people have heard. So I went to Salt Spring Island, and they used to have the 3 Principles School on Salt Spring Island, and it's a 3-day thing, and it's all relaxing and it's all beautiful. And when you go to Salt Spring Island, there's the option to travel by ferry from Vancouver, and it's a slow ferry, and it stops at all these other little islands along the way, and you get to see seals basking in the sun, and birds, and the water's lapping against the boats. So you really get to start to slow right down and feel more in rhythm with life. And so I went there with my husband Rob, and we spent some time there. Then we had the school, so it's all beautiful and slow and relaxing. And then Rob went home, and I stayed to have 4 days mentoring with Elsie Spittle. And I'm in this beautiful Airbnb that you could see the sunset from my balcony, and the ferries coming into the port. And it was just idyllic, hummingbirds on the tree. It was completely idyllic. So on the first day of my mentoring with Elsie Spittle, off I went in my little truck, and went to her house. And she invited me in, and it's a thrill to go to Elsie Spittle's house, you know, and she let me hold, as an aside, she let me hold a first edition of Second Chance by Sydney Banks. And it literally vibrated. The book was just, yeah, it was crazy. And so, you know, she put that back in its cabinet and she said, sit down and we'll have some lunch. And we had salmon that her husband had caught in the stream and vegetables from the local market. And we had this gorgeous day. It was beautiful. We sat in the garden. And then it was the end of the day, and I drove back to my Airbnb. And I drove back and I thought, is that it? I thought Elsie was going to do some sort of magic on me, and, you know, like I'd be transformed and so on. And I thought, wow, is that it? Is that what she does? She just like has lunch and a conversation. And, you know, I mean, the salmon was nice, but, you know, really expensive salmon for what you pay for the coaching. So I was really in my head. So the next morning, I thought, right, I'll take along all the things I need to work on. No, you see, you can all forgive yourselves for any time you get in your heads, because I've been in the game a long time by that time, and I still thought that's what I needed to do. So I went along to Elsie's and I brought all these things with me that I felt that needed to be worked through. And so Elsie, oh, you know, how are you? And I said, wow. And then I just went blah, 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 blah. For roughly about 20 minutes. I didn't stop. And the speed that was coming out of my mouth was even faster in my head. So my head was just with all the things that I needed to tell her that she could do the magic wand and make go away. And after about 20 minutes, could have been a bit longer, Elsie was sat in her living room on a sofa at one side of the room, and I was sat on a sofa at the other side of the room. And after, you know, some time, I said, is that making sense? And, you know, paused for a breath. And I had noticed that Elsie's face was a bit sort of glazed over. And she said, I think you need to lie down. And I said, pardon? And she said, well, I do. I was stunned. So I said, really? And she said, yes. And she said, you lie down there and I'll lie down here. And she turned around and she put a little grey head on the arm of the sofa and put her little feet up. And I think she might have had a throw and put the throw over her and just lay down. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll lie down then. So I lay down, and my view was I could see the sky out of her window and I could see the clouds, and I was looking at the clouds and I felt a bit hurt. I felt a bit stung. And while I was lying there a bit stung, looking at the clouds, I sort of just got a little bit more peaceful, and I thought, actually, why did I just do that? I don't even like it when people do that to me, like natter my head up and then I can't see the wood for the trees. Like that's very strange. So, you know, that went through my head, and I thought, oh well, there you go. So I lay down and eventually drifted off with the clouds, drifted off to sleep. And then Elsie came by and said, oh, shall we go for a little ride out? And we got up and she took me around the island in her little car, and we looked, she pointed out places that Sid lived, and she put some Sid on the tape, and it was all very peaceful. But my mind was really quiet, really, really quiet. Silent, I would say. It was silent. There was nothing going on in there. And she dropped me home, and later that evening, I ended up writing a poem about silence being your friend, and actually cancelled my session with her the next day because I felt that I just needed to be on my own and just with myself. Anyway, there's more to that story that happened later, but for now, I want to just pause it there. Because when I met with Elsie later that day, she said, "Oh, you know, how are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, just so relaxed, so peaceful." And she said, "I've never said to anybody that they had to lie down before. I've never had to say that." And she said, I didn't want to hurt you, but it seemed to me exactly the right thing to say. And I could see that it stung you. And I said, "It did sting me, but I could see the truth of it. I could see why you would say that." So she said, "Yes, because it came wrapped in a blanket of love." And I realized that for Elsie, the glazed over look and feeling that she was having indicated to her that this wasn't the direction, this wasn't the place where we both needed to be, especially me. And that the only thing that she could come to mind was, "I think we need to have a lie down." But it came from a place of her wanting the best for me. It came from a spiritual source. And so therefore, even with the sting, because I could hear the truth, somehow the anesthetic of the truth calmed my mind enough to enable me to relax and drift off. And then, you know, the thinking had gone, and just enjoy the silence. And so whenever I've got to have that honest conversation with other people, whatever that is, my best bet is to go to the quietest place I can go to in my mind and get out of the personal, you know, what it means, why you should have said this, why that shouldn't have happened. Get out of the personal and go to the truth of what's really going on. And the truth of what's really going on can sometimes be just as simple as there isn't a fit, or it just doesn't, this just doesn't work right now, whether it's, you know, love, work, or otherwise. And instead of dressing that up with all the reasons, I can simply go there and the rest follows. And that's made those conversations much more honest, because I'm not trying to shield myself or anybody else, and much kinder. So how's that landing? And feel free to share if anybody wants to share or ask. You got your hand up, Rachel? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Not very well.
How about now?
Better.
Is that
Better, much better.
kind of amazing to me that this is the first time I've joined and that this is the conversation today, because what you're describing is what my husband and I have been doing over these past several days, because we found ourselves in the hardest moment of our marriage. And just, I've known from the beginning of this moment that, like, as much as I can do this moment from a place of love instead of all of the raging and feelings and everything, that will carry us through. But it wasn't until a couple of days ago that I heard whatever from my wisdom. These days I've been calling it God. I said what? I said to myself, I said, God, help me know what I need to do. And God said, stay quiet. And so yesterday we had a long day of being in this thing together, and we spoke more honesty and truth than we've ever done in our 26 and a half years. And I did it from the quietest place I've ever known. And everything about this hurts, and yet that quiet is, I think, the place of like our greatest salvation and liberation and ability to connect and make it through everything that is the hardest stuff that humans go through.
Thank you, Rachel. Holly.
Yeah, I hear you, Rachel. What was occurring to me whilst you were speaking, and also towards the end of you, Jacqueline, is what I love about taking that time and that space away from the personal, from being really involved with any conversation you feel you have to have, any choices you have to make, any changes you feel that you have to do, and there's something that you have to do about it, is normally from that place of something more quiet and more neutral. It always looks completely different. The conversation that's had is always something different. The outcome is always different. And quite often the choices that I think I wanted or needed to make are always completely different, and for the better. So it's just such a smoother ride. And quite often not the ending or the closing of something, it's a continuation. Because it just doesn't look the same. And because of that open, neutral conversation, it allows the other person to come back neutral and open too, where you see things more clearly in the moment. And it's not coming from a defensive place. It's not coming from a place that you've got to be heard. It's not coming from a place that a choice has to be made. So yeah, that's what was occurring to me.
Thanks, Holly. It's beautiful. I love that part about not coming from a place where a choice has to be made. Yeah, I really resonate with that. That's the corner we back ourselves into, isn't it? Is that almost that we've made the choice without the conversation, and then we're backing up the choice, so we can't hear that there's anything else available. Yeah, it's really good.
thing. I just could add another little bit to that, and because it just works in every area, just every area of things that are happening. I'm thinking of, I've got some estate closing of an estate issues going on, and even with that, you can get so riled up with it. But when you come to it, that's been my week. When you come to it, and if you just take that break away, you come to it, and it just doesn't look so intense, and it just looks like there's other opportunities and stuff.
I loved your sharing about your meeting with Elsie, Mam J. It's like, because what's so curious to me is how we do that. We think that the change comes from words that are said or something, rather than just actually the change comes from just the being together. And the mind just is always so much searching for something that it thinks it's going to get from hearing words or something, and then measures a value from that. So just hanging out seems like, well, what was the point of that? But actually, it's the presence together, isn't it? That's the thing that does the shift, not the words.
Yeah.
I mean, the words might convey something that, I don't know, aids something, but it's not the words. But somehow that's what we look for, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I liked that bit in The Missing Link. Nothing on earth can be more paradoxical than truth, for truth represents both the form and the formless. And for me, that means the formless being the spiritual essence, the oneness, the beyond, the unknown. There's something that isn't in form yet in our experience. And the form being the words, the space, the curriculum, the program, the whatever, the conversation, I guess. And seeing that they're actually the same, that you can, the form is a spiritual representation of essence still. And so the quiet can help us to create the form that is helpful to other people. But the more quiet we are, as you said, we had this conversation earlier, actually what happens in that silence, what happens in that space where there isn't any agenda or choice or rightness, is a slowing down to, what, use one of your words, Alfred, to a vibration, a slowing down to a space of where we both meet. And no matter which side we are in the formless, in the form, no matter which side of the fence we're on, actually, when we slow down enough, even if one person or one party slows down enough, then that can be heard more and felt more. And in my experience of working with people in difficult circumstances like prison and so on, they all want that. And the quieter you get, they want that quiet. They want to come. I used to call it the lagoon. They want to get in the lagoon, no matter how noisy and compelling the form and the conversation is. When the facilitator gets quiet, the boys want to come and get in that lagoon that you're in. Hey, Derek.
Hi everyone. Yeah, do you know what? I just wanted to touch on that bit because that's the bit that stood out for me, Mama J, the bit you just said. It's kind of fresh to me as well because someone said something to me the other day, and it sort of made me see something, but I didn't quite understand what it was I saw. But when you just explaining about the form and the formless, and it's both sides, how that shown up for me is me and the mother of my children were broken up, and I've just moved out, and I was telling somebody the other day that I just moved out, and then they asked me how come it got like that, and I said, oh, it's a long story, but. And then they must have just asked me a simple question. They said, well, have you offered like a real, true, heartfelt apology about everything? And I've gone, I wanted to, my mouth opened to say yes, obviously, but then my memory was slowed down. Hold on, when was that then? What time? And I thought, okay, in truth, I haven't really, and it sort of hit me. And I thought, but I have apologized. I have given a heartfelt apology, but, and I didn't understand why that hit me so, it hit me deep, and I didn't understand why. But when you're saying what you're saying, I'm sort of seeing that it's that same formless, and this is going to be hard to explain, but I might have said sorry and apologized heartfeltly, and that was like the form part of it. But then because the formless part of it is sort of expecting it to be seen straight away, and it's not being seen, so it's not acting from the same space where that apologies come from. So to her, I look like the same thing. And I couldn't understand that because I've been on calls like this and I've sung like a bird and everyone said, oh, that was a nice share and I felt brilliant. And come off the call and she just had a go at me and she told me I'm the same person, you haven't changed, you're fake in front of those people. And I thought, oh, it's her not wanting to, but if I haven't come from that formless space with her, because that's where the thought has broken me down, because I thought, how I am now, I thought I'm like this everywhere with everyone, but apparently not, because I'm like this with you guys, and when she sees, I think that she's seeing this, but she's seeing the old form putting on a new, the old formless putting on a new form, if that makes sense. And to her, that just looks fake. But I don't even know if this makes sense, but I couldn't see it like that. But to see that I'm not in this space, there's two different spaces I occupy basically. And I didn't know that. I thought I was just in this space all the time. And when I look at her, even today, she asked me to do something. I use you, Mama J, because even today she asked me to do something. And I was like, oh, but I'm going to football with my son and I'm going to have to bring the juice with me. And oh, that's just, and I said, no, just sit with it, don't say it. And then my son said something. He said, I don't want to go football now, I want to play with the children. And I got frustrated. And I go, oh, well, you stay here then. I said, you know what, I'm not even buying anything because I was going football and I walked off. But then I said, hold on. In truthfulness, if that was you, Mama J, where we are in location and I had to go, and you said, oh, I love that little juice part, the road, I would have got that for you, Mama J. I would have got that for you. And I would have brought it off, I would have dropped it off and then gone to the football. And I sort of saw, wow, my head is just in a, like, yeah, it's just, I don't know why it's like that, but that has sort of shown me, but it's where I'm coming from, that formless space. And since then, I've like made phone calls and I've inquired as to like how you're doing and just little things like that. It's coming from that formless space and it's showing up more genuine. But I thought that if I was being myself and being genuine to you guys, then everybody else would see me like that. But if I haven't fully pulled my pants down and revealed myself, then they're just going to look at me like, oh yeah, like you're doing that for somebody else. I'm not feeling that. And all this time I thought it was her. But that just blasted in my head saying, no, it's me, everything, all arrows, anything, always pointing back to you. Always pointing back to me. That's what I'm seeing. And see through that, like I thought, yeah, I know. But to be living in it and around it and it being it, and it's like a micro Rizlo paper, micro cigarette paper, the difference.
Amazing.
You see such a big thing on one side and yeah, and the difference is just so, But I heard when you said that, Mama Dear, about the formless and the form not showing up. I thought, how did that? That's what I've been feeling.
You said it, and what came to my mind was, have you really apologized without any agenda? And that's what we do, right? We apologize, but the agenda is, well, I've apologized now, so you should be feeling better.
And you know what, Mama Dear, because those apologies were probably issued in the early days, I probably said, yeah, the principles tells me that I'm going to apologize, everything's good, but you know what, we've got to forget the past and move on. Right, let's back up. So to her, that hasn't really evolved. So to her, even though I'm seeing new things and I haven't really gone back and said, oh, well, you know, I shouldn't even have said that thing about it. You can't really just forget about the past. What it is about just being able to accept it. And I do apologize. And everything about my sentiment sort of spells that coming from that space.
Right.
I see that it doesn't. See that I'm way, way, way off the mark. And just by noticing it, I've showed up a little different. And yeah, that is just like, not even a weight off my shoulders. It was like always something I thought was her. And I've realized, yeah, there is more for me to do. You know what you said that, Mama, the thing that you said at the beginning about the misconception about we think there's nothing to do. And when we say nothing to do, I see it as there's nothing to do but to wait and listen to that instruction, or listen to that direction that you're pointing. And then the action kicks in, then we know it. Sit down and just wait and say I'm sitting down waiting. Yeah, that's like a fallacy that we brought ourselves into. But to just know what you're waiting for that little feeling, that little nudge, that little have a look in that direction. And then go and explore. But yeah, I love the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you
Fresh,
so
you know,
much.
fresh.
Yeah, fresh. That's all.
It's just another case of separate realities, isn't it? Because I've had I love that, Derek. That was amazing. I've had I've really connected with it because a few months ago, I've always considered myself driven and motivated, and if I've got a target that I want, then I'll go and get it. If I've got something I want, I'll go and get it. If I do this, I'll go and get it. And there's lots of things I don't want, and I don't go and get them. And I come home and I relax and I recover, and then I wake up and I go and get what I want, and I go and get what I want, and I go and get what I want. I come home, I relax, I go out, I get what I want. I come home, I relax, I go out, I get what I want. And there's a bit of a pattern there. But to me, recovery and relaxing, and it helps to go and get what I want. And what I want is, you know, progression for my family and a better future for my daughter. And I want my wife to have all the bells and whistles and flourishes. And the conversation that me and my wife had a few months ago was, I've been negligent for 7 years and lazy, and I don't help in the house, and when I come home I'm tired and I'm grumpy, and I was like, oh, tired and grumpy, I'm relaxing and recovering. How could you see that as tired and grumpy? And she's like, you're short-tempered and you're lazy, and you know, you say, oh, I want to help with the housework, and then you don't help with the housework, and it's such a, it was absolutely mind-blowing to see myself as driven and motivated, and for her to see me as lazy and unmotivated and negligent was the word she used. It was a hard hitting word, and I was stunned. Like the word seems to be stunned when you hear something like that. If you need to lie down, you're stunned by it. I wasn't hurt. It was only afterwards when I started to think about it, I sort of got hurt by it. And I thought, oh wow, I've been negligent. And I wasn't hurt and angry at her for saying that. I was hurt because I thought, wow, yeah, I've given you a negligent energy for whatever reason. You know, if that was her interpretation of it. But it came from a place for her from love, and she wasn't telling me to say, right, well, I've had enough, you're negligent, you're old, beep. and see you later. It was I love you and I need more, and this is where we're at. And for her to say the words that she said sort of opened my eyes to, yeah, I'm motivated and driven. I'm like hardcore driven, obsessive outside of the house. I come home and I switch off. Of course she sees lazy and negligent and whatever, even if that comes from me a place of, no, well, this is aiming at long-term goals and this is what I need to achieve those long-term goals. So yeah, really good conversation, honest conversation. It was brutal and brilliant to have at the same time, and it has allowed me to, I still relax and recover, but instead of scurrying off to my bedroom in my corner with my computer or my sitting in the corner with my mobile phone and scrolling through nothing, I relax by lounging on the sofa while my daughter plays with Lego, and sometimes I watch her and sometimes I get involved and it's more involved, but still, I'm not exercising or lifting heavy weights. I'm recovering and relaxing, and actually I recover and relax far better and far quicker through doing these activities. So yeah, really interesting to hear that other people have. It's coming off a Zoom call to turn around and she says, yeah, you're all fake in front of them, and you go, no, that's me. How do you not see that that's me? Yeah, really good.
Nice. Thank you, Dazzle. Alfie says, I love that. Stunned kinds of shocks us into a pause, and sudden space of new stops us in our tracks to see something differently. It made me think of a stun gun. But yeah, like that, stunned, like, oh, hang on a minute, what's really going on here?
And do you know what opened up for me, Mama Dear? When, like I said, when a person said about, I went to answer it so quickly with a yes. The yes was lined up, it was on the tip of my tongue. And I thought, let me be honest. And I thought, hold on, now let me see how I could see how I sort of shifted and changed to where I am now. What I see as that doesn't look like anything that I've offered, if that makes sense. I could go back to like 2.5 years ago where I said, oh, do you know I'm truly, and you know this, and you know that, and you always forget everything. And to me, that doesn't feel like what the question I was asked. So then I had to pause and then answer no, and then start laughing, like, why did I answer that? Why did I even answer? Then afterwards, the cog started turning and breaking it down as to what. I think, yeah, it's that. And then when I saw it, like what Dazzle said, it was a separate reality nature of it. That, how can it just stunned me, and it's the same word, it just stunned me to think, all this time I've known about separate realities, I talk about it, I think it, and I'm not even seeing it interact in my face, and I'm calling it something else. I'm calling it, that one, yeah, no, she's a bit, yeah. That's not, that those don't apply to the rules, but just seeing it like that, and it hit me, like, what an idiot, like, it's it's everywhere, something that I see and assume is that way straight away, and with that I automatically assign her reality to her, and I know where she's coming from, so I know how to address it and I know how to open that door. If I'm not even coming from the right space or the right angle, I'm only opening wrong doors, and that's just making it even worse. And I sort of see that now. It's all play, but when you're not seeing it, all those doors are legitimate. All those, and the motivation to open them is, yeah, we're gonna get there. This is a way to get in there. And you open the door and it's a firestorm. And you're like, what's wrong? Okay, she's even further up the road than I thought. I'm gonna have to do like the big red door. And that is just making it worse, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just how that's showing up for me now. I'm just seeing how I feel it. And I do feel like a bit of an idiot.
That's a really good sign though, right?
Yeah, because it's wrapped in that comfort of, learning with you.
Yeah.
To learn.
And like Bill Pettit often says, I can lose my wallet and my humility, but I know that I'll always find my humility again. Like these are the things that make us humble and realize, oh, I need to look fresh again. Oh, I need to look again. So yeah, look, I love that. Harriet.
I'm really loving this conversation, and I'm just I was just sort of pondering on my most recent honest conversation, and my most it was really profound learning, but it was very different to what everyone else is talking about. I basically had a very, very loud public row with a colleague, actually someone I manage, so it was very inappropriate, but we did then take it to one side, and it was just the two of us. And what I'll tell you the end before I carry on, just in case you're worried where the story's going. We went to a really deep space together really quickly, but what was incredible to me, reflecting on it now, is that I wasn't in anything that would faintly resemble a quiet space. I wasn't like, and what I realized, I think I do a lot of making up about what a quiet space means. I was in a heartfelt space. I was heartfelt furious with him. But I also heartfelt really like working with him. But in that moment, and he was really cross with me. But in a weird way, we actually were both incredibly quiet, but not in the way that I would normally describe. And what was incredible about that conversation was that we were both very deeply honest. And like, even at one point we were, we kind of argued about the work, the things, the stuff we didn't agree on. But then we got, at one point, we were both shouting at each other, "But I really like you. I really like working with you." And it was, cathartic is one word for it, but it doesn't feel like the right word. I don't really have the right words to describe what happened. There was magic in that room between the two of us, because as we talked, because we were honest, we didn't have the outward signs of quietness, but I know that quiet's just a word we use, isn't it? I know that, like, spirit, or whatever you want to call it, was in that room between us, and strong, and we kind of talked ourselves down, and like we went from, "But I really like working with you," to I remember at one point I said, "But I just want us to be gentle with each other," because he was saying, "But it's okay to disagree," and I was like, "Yeah, I just want us to do it gently." And then it was like those words just came, and if you'd asked me before the conversation, as a line manager, I would have said, "Oh, I need to talk about his respect sometimes, and he needs to be more professional." But actually, gentleness was exactly what I wanted from him, and it was extraordinary that word just came in the moment, and it came out, and he could really hear that word, and he softened completely and said, "Oh, I get it. I'm really boisterous, aren't I?" And then we kind of went, like, we just carried on, and we had this just incredible conversation. And since then, our working relationship has just been phenomenal, because we're both just as annoying as we were before. We still disagree over the stuff, but we are gentle with each other, and it was really incredible. But what I'm hearing in this conversation this evening, which I really want to go away and play with, is that I think that ended up in a row because we were both holding back and hadn't been able to step up and say in a calmer way, "I don't like it when you do." And so it kind of burst out the sides when it got to kind of fever pitch. And I realised, I think, Dazzle, it was you talking, like, when you're saying your wife said you were negligent, and I realised that might have stung, but I'm like, oh my God, I just need to tell my husband how annoying he is. But in a, like, it would be, what I'm seeing is it would be really great just to say it with that love, right? Because it at the moment it just comes out when I'm cross, and he doesn't, like, he and I haven't so far got into the kind of conversation that my colleague and I got into, and so what I'm hearing is go and be courageous, go and have the difficult conversations, have the honest conversations, and trust in it, and that trust, for me, there's something really trust building about the way my colleague and I had this row, because it wasn't perfect. I didn't articulate myself how, if I meditated for an hour and got into a really peaceful zone, I wouldn't, that's not how it would have been. But actually, maybe I wouldn't have said any of it, and it needed to be said. And so there's something about just trusting myself, just to be courageous, get out there, say what needs to be said. And if it's a bit rough or it's not quite right, then just that trust that somehow it will work out. Yeah.
Fantastic points. Absolutely brilliant.
Can I quickly answer? My partner, Lolly, most definitely told me the same words and all the same things over the 7 years, but it was always a row and a bust up, but it wasn't an honest. It was a frustration, it was an angry, it was a something, and it was I don't know, there was an agenda. She wanted the housework done, and she was frustrated that I wasn't doing it because I was negligent, and so the agenda was to get me to do the housework, so it just resulted in a row and a disagreement and a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of, well, yeah, but I'm doing this or I'm doing that. And when she told me, it was totally oh my god, this is do you know who you are at home? And not for me to do anything. It was just do you know that this is who you are? And I had no idea, of course. And I think you needed that row. I think that's great. I think I needed her to not row with me, and some people do need the row. It's all. I mean, I'm big on vibrations and frequencies at the moment, and I'm discovering my vibrations and my frequencies that I vibrate at, and everybody else vibrates at their own things, and some people vibrate at the same things, and it's all magical and wonderful. But it sounds like you two in that room were on the same frequency, angry and frustrated about the same things, and you came to understand and vibrate at the same frequency again, and that's amazing. I love that.
Nice. Gary?
Yeah, I love what everybody's been saying, and what I've took out of it, what I've seen is to have a truly honest conversation. And there's been different ways of talking through it, but what I've took out of it is we've talked about coming from a place of love and neutrality, and that's what I've seen in that, because an agenda is just a load of thinking, basically, and at any time there's a load of thinking involved. I even took from what Harriet said, because I was thinking, oh, what does that mean in context of that? Yeah, there might have been a load of thinking beforehand, and it gets quite heated with somebody, but at some point, for it to get really honest, I think things have got to come to a level, and you've got to have that love behind it and that neutrality, because if it's clouded with more thinking, that's what I've took from it. It's that you think you can have an honest conversation, but while you've got an agenda, I'm not too sure you can. While you're thinking, right, what do I want to get out of this, or what's the point I want to make, or any of that stuff, you might try and have an honest conversation, but I think one or the other of you is going to react in such a way that creates more thinking that maybe takes you away from honesty. That's
I like that, Gary. What I heard in Harriet's story was that they were both, even at the height of their temper or argument, saying, I really love working with you. So there was love at the height, you know, whatever the form looked like, the messiness of the form, there was love. And that's what enabled them both to drop and then get quiet in the storm. And what came out of Harriet, you know, the perfect words. I want you to be kinder, more gentle. I mean, I want us to be more gentle with each other. Wow, who doesn't want that? Beautiful but heartfelt, honest, just raw words that if that other person loves you, they're going to hear that and go, yeah, me too, I want to be gentle with you. But I love that the agenda is thinking too, and I love the point of it. None of it has to look a certain way. You know, we how many groups have we had? And you know, Gary, Derry, Omar, all of us have worked in groups together. How many groups have we had that are noisy and men doing press-ups on the floor? You know, I mean, just absolute chaos and mayhem. And yet that man that did the press-ups on the floor, you know, came a year, 2 years later and told us all about how he left prison and he slept in his car to enable him to go to college. And he went to college and this and that. And you just think, obviously something got in despite the noise and the press-ups and the posturing, you know, because love was there. Love was in the room. The intention was towards love. Alfie and then Wilson, the Wilson.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how, yeah, interesting it was listening there to Harriet and how it's almost like being quiet or something. It's almost actually more about being so present and true to what's there right now in an embodied way, whether that's anger or frustration or silence or whatever. It's like you were so kind of embodied with what was real for you in that moment, and it's like you weren't sort of speaking from some projection of or feeling of projection of past or future. It was like, this is what's here right now, and that's like so kind of inspiring or something. And to me, that's what sort of, in a way, being a high vibration is, when we're so embodied and present with allowing what's there in the now and just sort of not blocking the flow so it can pass through and everything can kind of rearrange and go where it wants to go and bring things back to that kind of place of harmony. And that was really interesting to hear you sharing that, Harriet.
Nice. Made me think as well of the times when I've rowed with my husband, and in the row I know that this isn't what I want, and I know that I'm getting nasty or bitey or whatever, and that isn't really what I want to say, and that because the intention is towards love. And so the ability or the knowing in that moment of, hang on, I need time out because I've got something that I want to say, but this isn't what I want. And you know, it can look like that as well. So I don't know if I explained that very well. The Wilson.
Hey,
Hey.
yeah.
All good.
You know, I was on a listening vibe today, but wisdom kept pushing me like, go on, say that, say that, say that. But when I was listening to everyone, it just occurs to me that somewhere in anger there's a certain self-love that we tap into, and it's somewhere in anger, but I don't think it's a huge part of anger, but it's somewhere in anger. There's a lot of self-love, and I reckon that we can tap into that self-love without the anger. And because I realized that, but people like a lot of people, I speak to a lot of people now, like even my friends and a lot of different people, and I realize somebody might, even my mum, she might have a problem at work, and in her head, it is just embedded that there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. And when she phones me, you can hear her, she's down and she's out. But when she gets angry, she's like, she would stop doing those things that she's not happy doing. And she'll speak up for herself and she'll say something. And then obviously thinking gets involved, and you might say a little extra stuff. But I realize there's a certain level of self-love that comes with it where you won't put up with that no more, or you'll say something, or even with my missus, she would say something and I'd be like, wow, like that was 3 weeks ago. How comes it's only come across now? And I realized that's that self-love, letting it go, letting it out. And because it comes with the company of anger, I realized that I can't even see the wisdom in it because it comes with the cousin anger. So I can't even see that little wisdom of, wow, maybe that, do you know what I mean? Maybe there was some truth in there, or maybe that was because it came with the cousin anger. And the other side to that is it makes me, especially when I was listening to Darren, because I've been through like a similar situation, and it kind of made me realize how naive I was as well, how much I was creating in the background. And to me, it comes like a game because I've played games from young to old, so I've seen the upgrade. Do you know what I mean? And back in the day, there used to be a game and the background's not really finished. You know what I mean? Past the background's not finished. But I realize now, nowadays games, the background's finished, the whole town is finished. There's another town. You can go in shops, there's civilians, they're driving. It's all so much more. And I realize that's how our brains are. It's like we create the background without knowing it. So it's like even when it comes to something and my missus holds it for 3 weeks, I realized maybe on that day, her thinking was like, you know what, I don't want to hurt him, or I don't want to say this, or I don't want to. And I realized that thinking kind of blocks us from that truth, because it comes in the shade of love again. Like we don't want to hurt nobody, or we don't want to put anybody down, or we don't want them to see us like that person, and there's a lot of thinking at stake. So I just realized that there's a lot of thinking in the background. Whilst we use words to kind of simplify, there is a lot of thinking in the background. And I realized that it's like what Alfie said, it just comes with being present. Because even me and my missus, we kind of just had it was like a week off. But you could call it a week off where it's like, in the morning, yeah, you're right, I make my own coffee, she makes her own coffee, I'm out. Do you know what I mean? I'm at work, come home, chill, see the kids, I'm out with the boys. And we did that for a week, and we just kind of didn't talk. And then it's like yesterday, we kind of just got together, had a little row, calmed down, and then we had this beautiful talk about exactly like about what we was talking about just now, about saying those things. Do you know what I mean? Sitting down, saying those things, and even if it gets to a point where it's getting irate, we kind of know what's going on. We know what's going on in the mind, so we can take five. And it was a great conversation yesterday, because even the main bit for me was, well, I can't remember what the conversation was, but she said to me, that you're a bit more wiser than me. You've been through a bit more things than me. Why don't you take lead? And in my head, I was like, but I'm kind of talking to you about taking lead, but I didn't think about it like that. But when we had the conversation like that, she said, why don't you kind of take lead on that? And in my head, I'm kind of trying to show her to take lead on that. But in my head, I'm thinking, for real? Now, if she said that in an argument state, in anger, I probably wouldn't have heard the wisdom there at all, because now my thinking is that, nope, you're angry, you're coming at me, or this, that, that. But where we kind of settled and had this conversation around those, and I wouldn't say hard topics, because they're only hard when you think they are. It actually gets so lighter when you're open with it. Do you know what I mean? And we had this light conversation and kind of just saw what each other was talking about. And then from there, and what else come with that as well was patience. Do you know what I mean? Just patience for each other. Patience, because she's a very good texter. And me, I hate it. I hate it, because I can say something to you and you think I'm angry, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm perfectly fine. Do you know what I mean? And you just articulate it through text. Do you know what I mean? But it's like we get to know each other more when we sit down in a level and talk, and the hard conversations are just not hard no more, because I'm kind of just out of my ego, out of my whole creation into the present.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that, Omar. If I could just come in there, same sort of thing. When we build up an image of ourselves, or we think how other people see us, and we're prepared to defend the position that we think we're coming from, and then everything we build up, we know where everyone else is coming from, so we build our defenses accordingly. But when you just see and you're ready to be open, and you said present, to be open to just listening to how somebody else might see you, and that might not go with the way that you thought you were showing up. It's about just listening and accepting that, and that's the thing that stunned me. The same sort of thing you're talking about is the same sort of thing where I thought I knew what I was doing, and I thought I knew sort of like from the front foot, but it's all coming from that made up, that space where we've made up how things should look on both sides. And when we just accept that we don't know anything, we just know how to show up in the moment in an accepting space, then I think that's when that's when the eyes are open and you see something new.
Nice. Basil?
Wilson, I love you, bro. I've been sat there. I've had a thing that I wanted to say, and I knew where I was going to go with it. It was based on what Jacqueline was saying, and then Alfie said something, and it all connected together. And I was like, okay, I know where I'm going. I'm going to riff on it. And then you pop in and you give me the language that I know, because we're the same, and you give me the language and the tools to say the right thing. So good, so good. You never know what game people are playing and what their thought. What they might be playing Super Mario Bros. They might be playing a 2D side scroller. You don't know if they're in VR. They might have had the whole background. I've played games where the background is so well done. You're disappointed when you get to it and you can't open the door to the house. You're like, what? What do you mean? I've got this whole town and you haven't let me go through the door. Like, you never know what people are playing though. People might be playing a 2D side scroller. People might be playing VR. You've got no idea. And the connection that I made with your first story, Jacqueline, and what you connected with Alfie was, it's all about being honest with what's in front of you right now and the art of storytelling. So if you turn up with an energy with somebody that you love and you blurt out, this really exciting thing happened to me, and they're going, whoa, you don't even see it. You just absolutely bomb them with this high energy splurt out, and at the end of it you look at them and you go, yeah, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think about that? And they go, I think I need to lie down, or I think you need to lie down, or in my case it was, he was so brutally honest with me. He said, "I'm going to be honest, mate. You killed me. You've killed me there." And I was, "What do you mean I killed you? Like, did you not see how excited?" And he's one. He's definitely one for how you bring energy to the table, and people can feed off each other's energy. And you bring a high energy, and I'm going to be high energy, and we're all going to be high energy together. And I gave him this massive high voltage energy, and it fried him, absolutely fried him. And he's someone that I dearly love. He dearly loves me, and he would have definitely, he previously has been interested in the same topic and whatever, but I had no idea what game he had on in his head, and his game could not comprehend the background that I was trying to give him. He was in a 2D bloop, 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 and I gave him, I stuck a VR goggle on his head, and he went, "Oh, how do you move my hands? How do you do anything?" And it also brought me around to realizing that the art of listening isn't the sole responsibility of the listener, because you as the storyteller should also be listening to the listener, and that allows the separate realities and the separate games to kind of connect. And you can see if somebody is just holding a Nintendo controller, and you've got like wizardry stuff going on, and if they've got two buttons and a D-pad, and you've got too much stuff going on, you're not playing the same game. And you should be able to see that. So thank you, because yeah, as a listener, you should, as a storyteller, you should be listening too, and that's amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. It's gone very quickly this evening. I love that ending, that when we're telling somebody, when we want to have that honest conversation, we've also still got to be listening. Yeah, nice. So I'm going to wrap this up and bring us to a close. So I just invite you all, if you have time, just to take a moment to just reflect on the session. Sit, lower your gaze if you feel comfortable doing that. Just sit and reflect on our conversation this evening, and how you are right now, and what you might take away with you. Or if there's a word for how you're feeling right now, we'd love you to share it when you're ready.
I will. Can you hear me? I'd say just notice where your feeling is at.
Grateful.
We have a word from Facebook. Jill Thompson says thoughtful. She's loved the conversation. My word is excited, because I'm now excited to not look for the opportunities to be brutally honest with people and tell all the people that I don't like you. But I'm aware and I'm excited.
Nice.
I'll say, go on.
Go on, Derek.
I'll say, I don't know if this is a word, but I'll say, just so I've seen the depth of it, like agendaless. So I see when you have an agenda, it kind of comes with its own scenery, and same thing like what Dazzle and Omar are talking about, its own scenery, its own background, its own thingy, and everybody plays their part in it. But as soon as you drop that agenda, then you're just there for what you're there for, and then that will be revealed to you. And then the little town will make up around you how it's meant to be without you sort of pre-making it up before you've even gone into it. So yeah, I've seen that as a big word from you, RJ. You said agenda. So being agendaless.
Nice. I feel blessed, really blessed to spend this time with you. It's so special. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, guys, for being here. Thank you, Joe, and Christina, and Alfie, and Holly, and Harriet, and Derek, and the Wilson, and Mandy, and Dazzle. Thank you for all the tech. And Wendy Davey, and Gary, and Rachel, and Reese.
Bye bye, everyone.
See you all next month.
See you guys.
Love.
Bye.
Bye.